Wanting something you can't have should sometimes just stay a fantasy, because not every dream coming true is actually good for you. I learned that the hard way. Even now, my heart aches with regret when I think about everything that happened a year ago. Back then, I was 36 and working as a sales director at one of the top cosmetic companies in New York. My husband, Mark, he was 62, actually owned the company. From the moment we met, he was drawn to my charm and impressed by my work ethic. It didn't take long for him to fall for me, and within a month, he proposed. Of course, I said yes. Who wouldn't want to marry the wealthiest bachelor in town? Despite the 26-year age gap, Mark and I never really had issues. He was patient, understanding, and always made sure our disagreements never turned into real fights. He knew me inside out, my likes, my pet peeves, even the little things I kept hidden. But what he didn't know was that boredom had quietly crept in, and I'd been obsessively stalking my old high school crush, Ryan, on social media. Ryan was also 36, same age as me. He was the one guy I'd never gotten over. Anytime someone mentioned his name, I'd turn into a giddy teenager. He had the kind of eyes that could make you forget your own name, and he once made me feel special during our prom night when nobody else wanted to be my date. That single dance changed everything for me. You don't forget someone who rescues your confidence on the most humiliating night of your teenage life. So when I found out he got married 6 years ago to some girl from church, it shattered me. I always believed I was prettier than her, and honestly, I think everyone else wondered why he chose her. Maybe that's why I said yes to Mark so quickly when he proposed a year later. I thought my chance with Ryan was gone for good. Or so I thought. One day, a former classmate messaged me with some news. Ryan and his wife had split up. I was so stunned, I nearly dropped my coffee mug. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding. I knew this was my shot. If I was ever going to be with him, the time was now. So a month later I reached out. Just a simple chat at first. Some casual small talk. Then I started offering to help him with anything he needed while he tried to move on from the divorce. I didn't let on how excited I was just to be talking to him again, but inside, I felt like I'd give up everything, my job, my home, even my marriage, just to be with him. Yeah, I know. Stupid. But be real. Any woman in my shoes might have done the same. Weeks went by with nothing major happening, so I decided to take it up a notch. I invited him to dinner while Mark was away on a business trip. He agreed. I wore the most flattering dress I had and painted on the boldest red lipstick. One thing led to another, and we ended up in a hotel room. That night turned into a full-blown affair that lasted 3 months. And honestly, being with Ryan felt amazing. It was like stepping into the fantasy I'd been carrying for years. Everything felt just like I'd always imagined. But then things started to feel off. First, he told me his business was failing and he needed $100,000 to stay afloat. Then, a week later, he asked to borrow my Bentley for a week to impress potential investors, and wanted another $100,000, supposedly for his mom's intestinal surgery. I kept giving in. I knew deep down he was probably using me for my money, but I ignored the red flags. What I didn't realize was that Mark had been on to me the whole time. He knew. He knew about the social media stalking, the dress I wore that first night with Ryan, everything. He'd known Ryan had been my high school crush. He never said a word about it, but he watched me. All those business trips. Setups. He was testing me. I'd passed every time for the first 4 years. But in the 5th year, he caught me in bed with the one guy I'd never stopped fantasizing about. And he didn't say a thing. When he got home, he walked right past me like I didn't exist. I knocked on his bedroom door until my hands hurt. No response. My messages went unread. I was desperate to talk, to apologize, to beg, but it was too late. The next day at work, my worst nightmare unfolded. Everyone was gathered around, watching a video of me kissing Ryan. I panicked and turned off the screen, terrified there'd be more clips. Hours later, I was handed a termination letter. No severance. The reason? Unauthorized fund withdrawals. Then the bank called. My accounts were closed. And when I got home that night, all my stuff was piled outside the gate. Just like that, I was thrown out of my own house. After 5 years of being his wife. After everything we shared. Was I really that terrible? Did I deserve to be thrown away like garbage? Did he seriously expect me to believe he'd been faithful all those years on the road? Now, a year later, I have nothing. No money. No family. No home. I've tried reaching out to Mark, tried to make things right. But every time I get close, he slams the door in my face. If I could turn back time, I would have never gone near Ryan. He wasn't worth losing everything over. I'm Jason, and I've been dating my girlfriend, Haley. Our story took an unexpected turn the day I overheard her having a real, raw conversation on the phone with her best friend. We'd been together for about 2 years, and I was seriously thinking about proposing. Haley's not the kind of woman who turns heads in a crowd, not at first glance, anyway. She tends to hide her figure under oversized clothes, mostly because she doesn't like the kind of attention her body attracts. But if you're lucky enough to get close, you see how beautiful, warm, and loving she really is. We first met at a New Year's Eve party thrown by a mutual friend. I had no idea that chance encounter would turn into something so real. We had a lot in common. And while she didn't exactly sweep me off my feet right away, I found the courage to ask her out a week later. A few months into dating, she surprised me one night by showing up at my place. I wanted to make it special, so I cooked dinner and queued up a movie. Somewhere between the laughs and the cozy moments on the couch, things got heated. What started as sweet kisses quickly turned into a night I'll never forget. I was blown away by how fearless and passionate she was. That night took our relationship to another level. Of course, no relationship is perfect. I tend to forget things, important things, and that's hurt her more than once. Haley, like a lot of women, had her own quirks that drove me nuts sometimes. We didn't live together, mostly because her parents didn't approve. Even though we were tight, she worried that moving in together would just make things harder with them. And because I loved her, I respected that. I never pushed. But everything changed the night I overheard that phone call. Haley had just left after spending the night, and I was in the bathroom when I heard her voice. She had called her friend Jenna, and what I heard shook me. I always thought we were doing great, but she was clearly frustrated. She talked about how I forgot Valentine's Day, again, and how it made her question whether I really cared. She even said she felt like I was just stringing her along. That's dumb. She sounded hurt, and it hit me hard. She blamed my lousy memory. Said it made her feel like she didn't matter. That being with a guy who couldn't remember simple things made her feel invisible, like an afterthought. She said if I forgot another important date, especially something like Valentine's, she'd leave me. There was this heavy pause in the conversation that told me it wasn't just about dates. It was about whether she felt loved. Haley mentioned that Jenna had always made her doubt me. She even said she wished she had talked to her earlier. That part stuck with me. Jenna never liked me. In the 2 years I'd known her, she hadn't said one kind word about me. It always felt like she was trying to drive a wedge between us, and that night confirmed it. I was pissed. Instead of owning my mistakes, I found myself blaming Jenna. I hated how much influence she had. Haley kept saying it wasn't just Valentine's Day, it was all the little things I forgot that added up. She said if I'd remembered just one thing and surprised her, maybe things would have felt different. Sometimes, she felt like I only remembered her when it was convenient, like she was just there to keep me company when I needed something. After that long, emotional call, she hung up, and I was left feeling like I'd already lost her. I couldn't get Jenna's voice out of my head. I was furious. Who the hell was she to sabotage my relationship? Later that day, after I dropped Haley off at her house, I went to see my buddy Chris. I hoped for some clarity, maybe some advice. But Chris wasn't much help, actually. I started to think he wouldn't mind if Haley and I split up. He always acted a little too interested in her, and it made my skin crawl. That's when I remembered Sam. We hadn't spoken in a while, but I figured he'd be the kind of guy to shoot it to me straight. I reached out. And thank God I did. Sam gave me real advice, practical, grounded, and honest. He reminded me that if I wanted a future with Haley, I had to stop screwing up. I had to step up. I started writing things down more often, trying to keep track of the important stuff. The same day I left Sam's place, I took action. I booked a table at Haley's favorite restaurant, one she mentioned months ago and that I knew she loved. Funny enough, it was the same place Jenna once bragged about her boyfriend taking her. I used to feel insecure about that, like I couldn't give Haley the same kind of experiences. But now, I was done feeling that way. I didn't waste any time locking in the dinner reservation and putting down a prepayment. While shopping for a gift for Haley, I stumbled on this elegant brooch that just felt right. But then, inside the jewelry store, something unexpected happened. I caught myself lingering at the engagement ring display. And before I knew it, I'd picked out a beautiful diamond ring. Pricey, yeah, but it felt worth it. I transferred the funds from my savings right then and there to cover it. After that, I swung by a clothing store for a new suit. I've never been much for fashion, so I leaned on the salesman to help me find something sharp. He worked his magic, and when I stepped out of the fitting room, I actually turned a few heads. I overheard a group of women whispering compliments, and even though that should have been flattering, I just felt awkward. That's not me. To shake the discomfort, I picked out another suit, something more me, then stopped by the barbershop for a new haircut. That was a big move for me. I've always been a low-maintenance guy. But Sam had encouraged it, and for once, I listened. Later that night, Haley couldn't stop smiling when she saw me. She ran her fingers through my hair, clearly impressed. She asked what inspired the change, and I just shrugged and said I figured she'd like it. Told her I was tired of the old look. That seemed to spark something in her. She asked what I meant by tired of it, her voice a little more serious than I expected. I couldn't help wondering if she and Jenna had been talking too much lately. There was a strange tension in the air. Usually, I felt totally at ease around Haley, but suddenly I was nervous, like I was about to ask her out for the first time. And in a way, I was. I told her I wanted to take her out for Valentine's Day, a real, romantic evening. She looked surprised. Then she asked how I was doing, like she could tell I wasn't quite myself. I said there was nothing unusual about us going out, that I just wanted to show her I had something planned. But if she wasn't up for it, I'd cancel. I asked if she had any plans, and she said nothing special, just some party with Jenna. But since I was asking, she agreed to spend the evening with me instead. Still, I couldn't help pressing a little, asking if there was anything she needed to tell me. I was anxious. I didn't want any surprises. That's when Haley brought up everything that had been on her mind lately. She reminded me of how long she'd been close with Jenna, and said she only made those plans because she didn't think I'd ask her out. She told me not to read too much into it, but I could hear the sting in her voice. I admitted it, I was jealous. I was scared of losing her. That evening, she came home early. But something was off. She felt distant. All week we'd barely spent any time together, and Friday morning only made things worse. First, I got a call at work from the restaurant saying our reservation was cancelled. Some rich guy had paid to book out the entire place, and ordered the staff to cancel all other bookings. I argued, pleaded, but they wouldn't budge. They refunded my money and that was it. Panicked, I scrambled to find another place to take her. But everywhere else was fully booked. I felt defeated. Valentine's Day was falling apart, so I settled on the idea of a cozy, romantic dinner at home instead. Then came the second phone call, and it was way worse. There'd been a fire in the apartment right below mine. It spread fast. My place was soaked, trashed. My clothes, my keepsakes, everything was either ruined or reduced to ash. I'd have to find somewhere else to live. Sitting at my desk at work, I felt hollow. Like my life had just fallen apart in a matter of minutes. Then it hit me, the ring. The engagement ring. I had left it on top of my dresser. I dropped everything and rushed home, or what was left of it. My once warm, welcoming apartment was now a dark, gutted mess. Most of my stuff had burned or been destroyed by water and smoke. Where my dresser used to be, there was just a gaping hole straight through the floor into the basement below. I dropped down on the curb outside, buried my head in my hands, and just sat there. I sat there on the curb, head in my hands, thinking things couldn't possibly get worse. But of course, I was wrong. As I stared at the ground, dazed, I caught a glimpse of Haley driving by, in my so-called friend Chris's Jeep. She saw me too, sitting there like a broken man in front of what used to be my home, and quickly turned her face away. I had lost her. And Chris? Looked like he didn't waste a second taking his shot. Later, while picking through what was left in the wreckage, I somehow found the ring box. The damn engagement ring was still in there, untouched. It felt like a cruel joke. I held it for a while, wondering what it even meant anymore. After that, I headed to my parents' place in the suburbs. Took a quick shower, tried to clean myself up. I still had some clothes in the back of a closet, outdated, sure, but they'd do. My parents kept trying to talk, but I couldn't handle their voices. I made up some excuse and left, driving aimlessly until I ended up at Sam's. When he and his wife saw me, they welcomed me in right away. They could tell I was a wreck. I told Sam everything over dinner, about the fire, the ruined Valentine's plans, Haley and Chris's Jeep, all of it. Halfway through, Sam's phone rang. He looked at the screen, then handed it to me. "It's Jenna," he said. "You should take this." The second I heard her voice, every emotion I'd been suppressing surged to the surface. Anger, heartbreak, disbelief, I lashed out. I asked if she was calling to gloat. I accused Haley of moving on like I meant nothing. I even threw out some wild comment about maybe she'd had something to do with the fire, just to twist the knife. Jenna was stunned. She said she hadn't heard about the fire until just recently, that she'd been trying to reach me all day. She insisted Haley still loved me, no matter what I thought. I didn't believe a word of it. I told her I saw Haley, in Chris's Jeep, pretending not to see me. That was all the proof I needed. Then I hung up. Just like that. Sam and his wife tried to talk me down, but I was already grabbing my coat. I mumbled a thank you and left, heading straight for the one place I used to go before Haley became my world, a dive bar downtown everyone just called VC. The name had always been a joke, but that night, it felt like it stood for something way darker. I found a seat at the bar and ordered a drink. Then another. And another. The bartender knew better, but he served me anyway, probably because I looked like I needed it. Before long, I was drunk out of my mind, drowning in everything I didn't want to feel. And then they walked in. Haley, eyes red from crying. Jenna, glaring daggers at me. But I didn't move. Didn't flinch. I stayed at the bar, sipping what I figured would be my last drink of the night. The bartender kept his distance. He saw what was happening and wanted no part of it. Haley came over, reached out to hug me. I pushed her away. Furious, I asked her how long she'd been sneaking around with Chris. Was that why she was in his Jeep? Was she really just fooling around with him behind my back? She looked hurt. Said I was drunk, not thinking clearly. Tried to get me to come back to her place so we could talk it out. But I wasn't having it. I told her we'd talk right there, or not at all. Even as angry and drunk as I was, I couldn't bring myself to say what I really wanted to, that I felt like garbage. That I felt like she treated me like garbage. Deep down, I still loved her. That's what made it all so damn hard. Jenna stepped in, and for the first time in 2 years, she actually sounded like she cared. She said if I wasn't so wasted, she might be yelling at me instead of trying to help. She told me to let go of my pride, that Haley adored me, and I was the one pushing her away. She wasn't wrong. I told Jenna that despite everything, I always saw her as a light in the darkness, even if she was tough on me. She always wanted what was best for Haley. Maybe deep down for me too. Then I finished my glass. And the next one. And that was it. I blacked out. The bartender and the girls helped get me into Haley's car. I don't remember much. Just flashes of street lights and nausea. When I woke up the next morning, my head felt like it had been split open. I barely made it to the bathroom. After some time, I pulled myself together enough to stand. That's when I saw my clothes, washed, folded neatly on a chair in the corner. I got dressed slowly. Then it hit me, my pockets were empty. I wandered into the kitchen looking for a glass of water, and maybe an explanation. When I stepped into the kitchen, I saw Haley and Jenna sitting at the table, clearly waiting for me. Jenna, sharp as ever, looked me over and said, "Well, someone's not in a great mood." That wasn't the reaction I expected. I thought she'd be smug, maybe throw in an "I told you so." Haley stayed quiet, her eyes locked on the table. Already irritated, I looked at them both and snapped, "Well, I hope you're happy now." I mentioned that Haley hadn't even slept the night before. Her eyes looked tired, red. Jenna asked, "And you're okay with that?" "No," I shot back. "I'm not okay with any of this. My apartment burned. I spent the night in some dive bar drinking myself into oblivion. You two found me in a place I never wanted to go back to." Then Jenna explained how they tracked me down, how Haley had reached out to my parents, how they'd called Sam, checked all my old hangouts. When they finally found me, I was so far gone they could barely believe it. I didn't take that as some noble gesture. I was too bitter. "So what, you came to rescue me? Or was it just to watch me crash and burn?" I asked, sarcasm dripping from every word. "Did my parents ask you to keep an eye on me? Walk all over me while I'm down?" That's when I really looked at Haley. Her shoulders were shaking, and she was crying, silent, painful tears that made my chest ache. I collapsed into the nearest chair, feeling like everything inside me had collapsed too. I stared at the woman who still held my heart, even after everything. Jenna, firm and no-nonsense, reached into her pockets and laid out a few things on the table: a receipt from a restaurant, another one from a clothing store, and the small, charred box that once held the engagement ring. She shot me a look. "Found these in your pockets before I did your laundry. Care to explain to Haley what they mean?" My face went hot with embarrassment. I glanced at the receipts, then at the box, then back at Haley. She wasn't crying anymore, just looking at me, waiting. Before I could embarrass myself further, I blurted out, "Why were you in Chris's Jeep? Why did you look away like you didn't even know me?" Haley gave me this tired, almost dismissive look. "You wouldn't understand. Try me," I said, sharper than I meant to. "I need to know what's really going on." She took a breath, then spoke. Chris, he came to get me after he heard about the fire. He knew you might need help, and I wanted to see if anything could be saved. When we drove by and saw you, you looked so bad. I panicked. I thought I should bring you home. I just didn't know how to approach you. That's why I looked away." She looked at me, tears returning to her voice. "I wasn't hiding anything. I just didn't know how to help you. You were a wreck." Jenna jumped in. "And let's not forget, Haley's been through a hell of a night too. You're not the only one hurting here." It hit me hard. I had completely misread everything. I'd let my paranoia and jealousy take over, convinced myself that Jenna was sabotaging my relationship from the start. But she hadn't. She'd been trying to help all along. I looked at her, ashamed. "I'm sorry," I muttered. "I was wrong. About everything." Jenna gave a small nod and said, "You two need to stop focusing on what's tearing you apart, and start looking at what brought you together. The love's still there. But love needs trust. It needs effort. And communication." She looked at me, and I could tell this wasn't easy for her to say. "I've always wanted what's best for Haley. And despite everything, that's you. But you need to prove it now." She paused, then added, "You don't realize how close she came to giving up on you. He remembers birthdays, anniversaries, every little thing you always forget. She thought maybe that meant he cared more." That hit me like a punch to the gut. "She thought you were the one pulling away," Jenna said. I wasn't, I whispered. She didn't know that, Jenna replied. And honestly, Jason, it's hard to defend you when you act like you did yesterday. You made a fool of yourself. She wasn't wrong. Sitting there, holding the dinner receipt in my hand, I felt like the biggest idiot on earth. I told them about the reservation at Del Rio's, how I'd booked it to surprise Haley on Valentine's Day, how I wanted it to be a night she'd never forget. But some rich guy bought out the whole place and cancelled every other reservation. Jenna rolled her eyes at the name, muttering something about Del Rio's being overrated, but I didn't care. To me, it was perfect, I said. Because she loves it. Because I remembered. I finally remembered. And I wanted her to know that. I looked at Haley and told her this. This was what mattered most to me. I shared how much effort I'd put into getting the suit, even admitting that I had no idea what I was doing when it came to fashion. Jenna's expression when she heard that was priceless, complete disbelief. She couldn't believe I'd voluntarily gone shopping. I smiled. I've always been a jeans and t-shirt guy, I said. They both looked shocked, and yeah, I kind of enjoyed it, even if the moment was far from ideal. Then I held the ring again. And just like that, all those memories came flooding back. I dropped to one knee in front of Haley, took her hands in mine, and told her the truth. I'd been off lately. I wasn't great with dates, I wasn't flashy, and I damn sure wasn't the most romantic guy. But I loved her. Deeply. Without question. I placed the box in her hands and laced our fingers together. Then I asked the big one. Haley, will you marry me? Jenna looked completely stunned. Haley started crying, tears running down her cheeks, and the whole room went still. I glanced at Jenna, then back to Haley, my heart pounding in my chest. With trembling hands, she opened the box and pulled out the ring. It sparkled in the light, stunning, but not even close to her beauty. She slid it onto her finger with slow, careful precision. It fit perfectly. Funny thing, the jeweler told me it might need to be resized. But right then, in that moment, it was like the ring was made just for her. Then she threw her arms around me, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Her tears touched my cheek, and I wrapped her up in my arms, not wanting to let go. We kissed long and slow. I looked over at Jenna and saw that she was crying too. She pulled Haley into a hug, holding her like a sister. Both of them were crying and laughing, spinning around the room like kids in a dream. I just sat there, taking it all in. And then the phone rang. The answering machine clicked on, and Mike's voice filled the room. He sounded smug, too smug for someone who was supposed to be concerned. He said I wasn't right for Haley, especially after what happened yesterday. Then he had the nerve to invite her to dinner so they could talk. Before Haley or I could even react, Jenna snatched the phone and jumped in. She's not interested, Jenna snapped. Not in you. Not in anyone else. She's found someone who loves her. Someone who actually matters. So do us all a favor and back off. Then she hung up on him. For a second, the room was dead quiet. Then Jenna burst out laughing. Haley followed. And honestly, I couldn't help it, I laughed too. Hearing Jenna go to bat for me like that, it threw me. She actually cared. That night, Haley and I curled up together in her bed. She rested her head on my chest, the soft light from the lamp catching the sparkle of her engagement ring. Even in the dark, that thing glowed. And so did she. I noticed a tear in her eye and gently asked if something was wrong. She shook her head. No, she whispered. Nothing's wrong. Everything feels right. Then she looked up at me with those eyes I'll never forget and said, I love you, Jason. From that moment on, everything changed. We started planning a small, simple wedding. Haley was glowing every single day. Jenna, now my biggest supporter, was with us every step of the way. I couldn't believe I had once thought she wanted us to break up. I felt ashamed of how wrong I'd been about her. As for Mike? He tried reaching out a few more times, but Haley shut it down immediately. She never took his calls. Never saw him again. I trusted her completely. Just a few weeks before the wedding, Haley gave me some news that took my breath away. She came home late from work one evening, looking nervous, but in that kind of giddy, glowing way. I asked if everything was okay, and she smiled, held my hand, and said, "Jason, I'm pregnant." My heart nearly stopped. I stood there, stunned, trying to process what I just heard. And then I just broke into the biggest, most ridiculous grin of my life. I was going to be a dad. She was going to be a mom. Our future was everything I had ever dreamed of, and more. And then, as if the universe wanted to make sure everyone got their happy ending, Jenna shared some news of her own. Her boyfriend finally proposed. She said yes. And just like that, everything was finally right.